Welcome to On Defense and Security, a podcast that examines domestic and international defense and military affairs. Through conversations, we will bridge the gap between academic research and policy and provide a platform for informed discussions, enabling our listeners to better understand critical issues.
Today on Defense and Security, we're joined by Dr. Michael P.A. Murphy, who's a director of the Center for International and Defense Policy here at Queen's University. Michael is also president of the Canadian region of the International Studies Association. He holds a PhD from the University of Ottawa, where his dissertation won the Joseph de Koning Prize for making an outstanding contribution to interdisciplinary knowledge. He's a former Digital Policy Hub Fellow at the Center for International Governance Innovation and Banting Postdoctoral Fellow as well. Michael has published on a range of topics, and his current research interests include emerging technology policy, security studies, and international relations theory. He's the author of 2 books, over 40 peer-reviewed articles, and co-editor of 2 volumes. His work has received a staggering over 2,000 citations. Now, Michael is both an expert, like I mentioned, not only an expert in emerging technology policies, but also security studies. And these are 2 worlds that are colliding in fascinating and at times unsettling ways. So today we're going to talk about what all of that actually means for defense and security, as well as what the CIDP is working on right now and some exciting events that are coming down the pipeline this year. So before we get into the big stuff, Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Katherine. I'm delighted to be here.
It's great to have you. I know you've been really busy this summer. It's the 50th anniversary of the CIDP, and there's a lot of exciting things that will be happening. But before we get into the big questions, I was hoping we could start a bit with your own story. So what first sparked your interest in your research field? Was there a particular moment or experience that set you onto this path?
So I was one of those people who finished high school thinking they knew exactly what they wanted to do. And for me, that was going to the University of Ottawa, doing an undergrad in Canadian politics, and then coming back to Queen's to go to law school. And in third year, I was, preparing for LSATs. And I was taking this fascinating course on international security, migration, and border policy. And I decided that all of that seemed a lot more interesting than the logic games of the LSAT. So I decided, I'll reorient for a little bit. I'll go and take a lot more international relations and security courses. I'll maybe do a master's degree, and then I'll come back, to the original plan. And I haven't really looked back since. It's been, a really great opportunity to ask new questions, learn new things, and it sometimes feels like drinking from a fire hose. Definitely since I've stepped into the director's chair here on July 1st, it's a very exciting time in international security and in Canadian defense. Sometimes I wish it weren't so exciting. But there's a great opportunity for CIDP to contribute to both academic research in areas of priority, as well as to make a real difference in government policy conversations. So, I still don't quite understand how I ended up here, but I'm very glad I did, and I look forward to the new role.
Well, we're lucky to have you, that's for sure, especially in these strange, uncertain, but certainly exciting times. For those listeners who aren't familiar, could you maybe tell us a little bit more about what the CIDP is? What role does it play, you think, in shaping conversations about security and defense?
So the CIDP, as you mentioned, we turned 50 this year, and over those decades, we've developed a strong set of relationships across the defense team in Canada and with partners in the United States and across NATO nations. We're well regarded for the contributions that we've made to the academic study of security and defense, foreign policy, and also some kind of specific focus areas around gender insecurity and the women, peace, and security agenda. We're a small but mighty team on the administrative side, 2 full-time staff, 5 on the administrative lead team, and then about 50 fellows and a couple dozen student researchers, both undergraduate and graduate, and then a regular cycle of postdocs who come in and get the start of their academic career at the CIDP.
So what about now? What's happening right now at the CIDP? I think we have our hands in a lot of fascinating and exciting projects and research at the moment. And like you mentioned, we are turning 50 this year. Could you give a preview of what folks can expect to see coming down the pipeline?
Absolutely. So we have some of our regular programming that happens every year. The International and Defense Policy Speakers Series, which we're not quite ready to release the firm details, but I hope that people follow all our social media channels so they can hear the fantastic lineup that we have prepared for the year. And that will be happening throughout the year. Many of those talks will be available online for folks who maybe aren't in the Kingston area. And then if you're not able to join us live, you can check those out as future episodes of On Defense and Security. We have our main conference in November this year, the Kingston Consortium on International Security. And this brings together a really fascinating group of military leaders, defense scholars, and policymakers from around the world. This year's focus is on maritime security, and registration actually just opened tomorrow, at least as of day of recording. So if folks are interested in attending, I highly recommend grabbing one of those tickets before they sell out. In terms of research activities, we are the administrative hub for the research network on women, peace, and security, which is one of the Minds collaborative networks that, again, brings together a wide range of researchers across the country and internationally to look at current issues at the intersection of gender and security, and specifically around the WPS agenda. But one of the exciting things, in addition to all of these things that are wonderful every year, is the celebration series related to the 50th anniversary of the center. So a highlight for that will be our community reception in that back to school period, where we're going to bring in some folks from our different stakeholder communities and have a lovely time celebrating the successes of the past and the promise of the future for the CIDP. We're also putting together an edited volume that has a historical profile of the CIDP and a bit of a snapshot of what some of the questions are that CIDP has been looking at over the last 50 years, and some of the new conversations that are just starting.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot of exciting things coming down the pipeline for sure. But speaking of all of that, you've also, the center and you in particular, have recently launched a new cluster, haven't you? A new technology and security cluster. And there's a big event coming up this month as well.
Yes, we're very excited to be setting up a horizon scan to figure out, what the mission of this technology and security cluster should be. This is a very exciting and somewhat daunting area of study. The intersection of emerging technologies and security brings up a lot of the buzzwords that are, on social media, traditional media, and academic research quite frequently these days, from AI to cyber attacks to quantum technologies, big data, 3D printing. All of these things and more will be brought together in a kind of community by this technology and security cluster, which will house a number of different research projects ongoing and ones that we hope to see soon around different issues in terms of emerging technology and defense policy.
I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what kind of conversations come out of this. This might be a good time to shift toward talking about some of these emerging technologies and what they actually mean. And of course, you're an expert on quantum and quantum technologies and policies. You've been working quite a bit on this in recent years. So I'm sure some of our listeners are still scratching their heads about what quantum actually means. Could you maybe explain that to the audience a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I think that compared to some of the other emerging technologies that dominate the headlines, quantum has had a bit more of a mysterious quality associated with it. I partially blame the Marvel movies who just call things quantum when they need a magical thing to sound real. But really, it goes beyond that because we live in the macroscopic world. We interact with things and we don't expect objects to turn into waves. That would seem kind of ridiculous in the macroscopic world, the kind of object interactions that I'm having with my chair or with my desk right now. But in the quantum world, we're not talking about those macroscopic phenomena. We're talking about what's going on at the atomic and subatomic level, and there, nature is very strange. Some of the early discoveries that led to the field of quantum physics were trying to solve problems about what happens with light. Why does light behave in ways that don't make sense to us? Because we might think, okay, light is either a shower of particles like Newton did, or that it's a wave that kind of undulates through space. But what was confusing to a lot of physicists at the dawn of the 20th century is that light behaved in both ways. And one of the enduring themes of quantum science has been that things can have contradictory properties. Now, the first influence that quantum had on our lives was, understanding how those contradictory properties can let us do things. And that led to things like transistors and radars and many of the modern conveniences, like my laptop in front of me and your laptop in front of you. And that's kind of the first generation of quantum technology. We took the science of what we understood about what was going on at the subatomic level, and we made it do work for us. What's really exciting and a little bit scary is that a new generation of technologies is starting to roll out where scientists have discovered how to manipulate those quantum systems. And that lets us, compute in a fundamentally different way, sense in noisy environments, and communicate in, at least theoretically, unhackable networks. All of those have, massive promise for civilian economic development, but also really powerful offensive and defensive capabilities for folks working in the security and defense space. This will be a topic that we're going to work a lot more on at the CIDP, and we're going to work a lot more on decoding it because we need everyone working in this space to understand what's going on in quantum technology, and I think that kind of knowledge mobilization and scientific communication is an area that CIDP can really contribute to the defense policy space moving forward.
So what you're saying is this isn't just about faster supercomputers, right? It's about a complete rethink of how we approach defense strategy. It's a game changer.
Absolutely. Quantum's a game changer because it's not just about doing things a little bit better, but taking an exponential jump that will, reduce calculations that could have taken hundreds of years or multiple human lifetimes, and completing those in an afternoon on a new quantum computer that governments may have access to. The simulation capacity, even for things like bringing necessary supplies to military bases dispersed around the world. These will have significant speed up advantages when quantum computing comes online. And in other technical domains, areas like quantum sensing, we're going to see countries who are able to procure this technology effectively and efficiently have a major advantage on their all-domain awareness. I know that Canada actually has some leading innovators in this space, and some industry groups like Quantum Industry Canada are looking to support the talent that's being developed in this area to make sure that Canada can make the most of this opportunity, both for shoring up Canadian defense, but also for the massive economic impact that this could have to raise quality of life for Canadians.
So On the world stage, though, how does Canada's quantum capability compare to countries like the US or China or those in the EU? Are we there, or do we still have a lot of work to do?
So Canada has benefited from some very strong academic leadership in the quantum space. There was some visionary investments from private philanthropy and government sources in the early 2000s and 2010s that led to Canada becoming really one of the places to do basic research in the area of quantum science. And because these labs have been, attracting high-level talent, both domestically and international students who come to learn here, it's positioned Canada very well. You know, we're perhaps not quite on par with the dollar for dollar investments that China or the United States could make, as well as firms based in those countries. But we are a leader in many domains. Um, I recently learned that Canada has more exhibit-ready quantum startups than the entire European Union. And that kind of scale of innovation is something that places Canada at a great competitive advantage in the near term. Now, it also places some pressure on, how can we make sure that we make the most of that and we don't lose out our advantage to um, big tech firms that might want to gobble up these innovative Canadian startups. And I think that's why it's important that we have a broader range of folks aware of these emerging technologies across the defense community, even if you aren't, going to nerd out on different types of quantum technology. It's important for folks who are working on, wide ranges of defense and security issues to know a little bit about what's going on here, to identify potential areas for collaboration or where policy alignment allows investments in quantum technology to support other goals.
Do you think
So
we're
again,
at
that's why I think that there's a real benefit that the work of the CIDP in knowledge mobilization and communicating to a broad audience about these issues, that's where I think we'll have our impact in the next 8 years.
Do you think we're at a place right now in the short and medium term where, quantum advancements, quantum sensing, communications, computing, do you think we're there right now where we'll be able to harness those technologies in the short term in a practical sense? Or do you think that's still a ways off?
One of the jokes of quantum computing is that it's been 15 years away for at least 15 years. So predictions about technological maturity are always a bit risky, but probably the most boring answer I can give you is that it will depend on the technology. So there are quantum sensors that fall into the category of magnetometry that are already hitting the market and having an impact. There are different kinds of radar and lidar systems that are just a bit ready to go online, and they're definitely mature in the prototype stage. Full scale fault tolerant quantum computers are still in that medium term range, but those will be some of the last technologies to come forward. And the impact of quantum technologies isn't just the day they're released, but in the case of computers that can break down current encryption protocols, some of those risks we're already living with today, because the way that our data is encrypted today already puts us at risk. If malicious actors can vacuum up many of our sensitive data now, they don't need to be able to decrypt that now. They can wait until they have a quantum computer that can do the decryption. This has led to a whole new class of threats. Sometimes they're called handle threats, HNDL, harvest now, decrypt later, because actors recognize that for data that have a long shelf life, they don't need to be able to access them now. They can just collect that data, and if it is encrypted in a way that it will be vulnerable to quantum computing in 5, 15, 20 years, then they can do the damage then. And our vulnerability of of present day is all they need to exploit that.
So someone explained this to me a while ago. You just think about a classic computer, right? I don't know, Michael, do you play chess on an app or something, or solitaire
Not
on
very well.
same here. But I guess when you're playing chess, let's say on an app, and then you're playing against a computer and you set your difficulty level, a classic computer, right, would predict each move as you go, right? You go, and then the computer does its move, and then you do its move. But from what I heard, what I've understood, a quantum computer could predict every possible move and every possible outcome and scenario from the get-go. Is that an accurate understanding? Like checkmate, right? You're not winning against a quantum computer. We can't possibly.
I'm certainly not. I think the big difference there will be the ability of quantum computers to conduct some of these computations simultaneously. So, the most powerful supercomputer will always beat me at chess because, I don't defend against bishops very well. So as soon as, the supercomputer figures out that there's a diagonal that they can take, they can stop their computing at that point and, attack my queen, and then I'm 3 steps from checkmate. The advantage of the quantum computer is that they will be able to conduct those computations simultaneously. I'm not sure in practical terms whether we will experience that difference in chess, but we certainly will when logistics officers are planning refueling for military bases around the world, and they're going through problems that computer scientists like to call the traveling salesman problem, where you have a bunch of different places to restock, and how do you do that most efficiently? So that will be, I think, where those kinds of problems will be where we see the greatest degree of quantum advantage. But sometimes even small quantum advantages can have a larger impact in terms of defense. But I don't have a clear answer on how to get better at chess or prepare for that era.
So one of the great things about the CIDP is that it's not just a research center for, early, mid, and senior career academics. It's also a place for future defense and security thinkers, for students. And we have a fantastic cohort of student interns that join us each and every year that conduct research for us, that help us with the Cases Consortium conference that's coming up. They're just a great, a very integral part of the center. Let's talk a little bit more about that. How can students get involved, and what kinds of opportunities are there for students at the CIDP?
I think that too often we overlook the importance of students in research centers and the important contribution that research centers can play to student experience on campus. There are a couple of ways that works out in the case of CIDP. First being, the research assistants that are on pretty well every project that's going on at the CIDP. Students who are interested in different issues related to, technology, international relations, gender politics, strategy, foreign policy, all of these things that are, I think, increasingly becoming those topics that drive students into fields like political science and history. We've got opportunities to get involved at the CIDP, and those aren't always available. So I think that kind of serious experiential learning opportunity is a really unique thing that's on offer at the CIDP. Another unique stream is the Discussions on Defense program that's run by our visiting defense fellows. So each year, we have 2 or 3 military officers who spend a year in residence at the CIDP, and in addition to running their own research project on an issue related to defense and security, they also engage very actively with students. And one of the ways is through the Discussions on Defense program. So this is a monthly get together where these visiting defense fellows will offer an unclassified brief on a topic of, that might be in the news or might be one of these evergreen concerns of security and defense. And students benefit from that. There's a lively Q&A session after, and usually there's pizza or some other kind of food that helps to drive up attendance. So that's something that you're not going to get anywhere else. And it's really a way to augment the course catalog offerings that students will be thumbing through over the summer. So if there are any students listening to this, please come out and attend the discussions on defense. And, I hope that those are really valuable experiences.
And I know that we've mostly been talking about your research in this interview, as well as exciting directions that the center's going in. Now we've spoken about student opportunities, students who are so vital to the center. But I know that teaching is also something that you're very passionate about. And you won a global award for early career innovation in the classroom. You've also been involved in research about teaching in higher education. Could you talk a little bit about your approach to teaching and how it relates to your research?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope we have a couple hours left.
All the time in the world.
Teaching, sometimes I joke that teaching is the family business. Both of my parents were teachers, and looking around the family tree, it's hard to hit a branch without finding a teacher on it. And I think that, it was something that kind of came naturally to me when I was in graduate school. I was still trying to figure out what that research thing was, but I had seen enough people talk about teaching at, Thanksgiving dinner that I had a sense of what that would be like. I guess another way that I felt comfortable in teaching and also in educational research was that when I came to do a master's degree at Queen's, I realized there was only one person on campus who I knew, and that was Andy Leger at the Center for Teaching and Learning. And I knew him because I coached his son hockey in high school while getting volunteer hours. So I had this, oddly stereotypically Canadian connection to teaching and learning and education research in the higher education space, really from the beginning of my graduate journey. So because of that, I, had the opportunity to get involved with some active learning classroom design research projects. So how can we better use the space that learning happens in? And when I started my PhD at the University of Ottawa, we had a new set of active learning classrooms that were opening up, and they needed people to be research assistants to help with program evaluation of these spaces. And so I applied for that, and it was another great opportunity because it was something that made me feel comfortable in this new space in the PhD journey. So when I had my first opportunity to teach a course, okay, well, I've been learning about these spaces. Why don't I try teaching in one with my own course? And that involved doing a lot more than just using a syllabus that was already on file, because I wanted to really get the most of get the best impact out of the room, and design different student discussion opportunities and things like that. So yeah, and then shortly after, with the COVID-19 pandemic, I had to learn a whole new way of fostering student interaction in that online space when we were very quickly pivoting our courses to online. And I think when I was looking forward to teaching in person again, I thought, well, all of those ideas that I've had that have been stuck on Post-it notes on my office wall, I want to put them all into action. And that's going to mean taking a very experimental approach to teaching, to try to figure out how I can meet the needs and interests and social interaction preferences of the students, while also playing to my strengths, because there's no point in teaching in a way where I'm not going to be effective for them. So as far as my approach to teaching, it's not really one thing aside from being experimental.
Michael, I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you so much for joining us and for finding the time. It's been a great chat. This has been a fascinating look, not only at emerging technologies and that are changing defense and security, but also the work that's happening right here in the center and your vision as the new director of the CIDP and directions going forward. So really appreciate you stopping by, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you so much for having me.